Fantasy GMs across the globe are looking to make a move to improve their team. But before you do that, you're tapped right back into your daily source for fantasy hockey news to make sure you have your finger on the pulse, which is why we're taking a look at all the top news from around the league, including how are these Minnesota Wild so hot and all of the biggest rumors circulating the world of hockey. Let's tap in and let's get this paper.
You're Locked On Fantasy Hockey, your daily podcast on fantasy hockey.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We're almost through another week of fantasy hockey dominance. We hope. So welcome back inside the lab to the latest edition of the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast. Salute, shout out, and much love to the everydayers holding us down, making us your first listen every single day. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel Sportsbook. Start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers that place a $5 wager can get started with $150 in bonus bets if that wager wins. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Mr. Roden, as always, thank you for joining me. I feel like the first few weeks of NHL action have been a little bit up and down. Some really sloppy hockey from a lot of teams, a lot of crooked number games, tease to bets at the end of the show. As always, we're going to break down our favorite three wagers. We're going to give a little McDavid update very quickly in the middle of the episode and bookend both of those by talking about the Minnesota Wild and breaking down a little Rumour Roundup, because there are a number of squads that, as much as these are rumors still, they're already looking to make moves, and I totally buy into the three teams we're going to talk about in that rumor mill. Over to you, though, to talk about the team that, aside from the blue and white, what is it? The green, white, gold, red. I don't know what else they got going on over there. Some
green
yellow.
And gold, baby. The
There
green and gold.
Over to you, because this Minnesota Wild team is demanding attention, not just for the feel-good story with Flower in Pittsburgh, but because they're playing very well. So, what are you seeing? Who are you looking at? And how are they doing this?
Oh, baby, am I excited to talk about this team right now. They have been tremendous in the month of October. 6-1-2. Top 5 team in the National Hockey League. They're a top 10 team in goals for. They're top 5 in goals against. The goal differential, they're top 3 in. It's been an outstanding start of the season. Complete 180 compared to last year in 2023 in October. So one of the biggest reasons, probably the biggest reason why they are so hot right now, they have the best left winger in the game. Kirill Kaprizov has been absolutely playing out of his mind so far to start this season. He has been absolutely incredible for them. 5 goals, 18 points. Incredible from Kirill Kaprizov. 17.2 shooting percentage. He's got 10 primary assists. He is just creating these opportunities every single game. I don't know if you saw that pass that he dished out to Matt Zuccarello in that game against the Pittsburgh Penguins. But, I mean, how does he do it? How does he know he's over there? The chemistry has formed, and it's solidified in that top group. Marco Rossi solidifying himself as the number 1 center. That's number 1. They've got the best left winger in the game right now. And in matter of fact, I'm going to go a step further. He should be leading in the Hart Trophy race. I know it's early on in the season.
Oh, let me bring up those odds for you.
He has been that good for this Minnesota Wild team, and he deserves to be at the top spot in the Hart Trophy race. That's number 1. Number 2, you're getting the depth scoring that I mentioned before. You're seeing the production from Matt Boldy, which has been a long time coming. Matt Boldy, 11 points. Zuccarello at 37 years old, like I talked about last week, 9 points, 5 goals. Marco Rossi, 8 points. You're getting some peripherals and some touch-ups and some depth scoring from that blue line. Jacob Middleton with 7 points, who leads all defensemen for them as Brock Faber starts to get a little bit of get his footing under himself. Joel Eriksson, 6 points in the game right now. So you're getting some great production from that top 6 forward group. Last point, there's a lot to talk about with this Minnesota team. I'm rambling right now.
That's okay.
I'm going to stick with the forward group. The third line has been absolutely incredible, and maybe it doesn't show what they've been doing offensively with their production. I know 3 goals or 3 points from Frederick Goudreau, but they're doing all the little things right. They're chipping in. They're chipping into the offensive zone and chasing those pucks, retrieving those pucks. They're being physical in the play. Marcus Foligno has over 25 hits on the season. Yakov Trenin, 26 hits on the season. The offensive will come with their game, but right now that third line is getting the guys going with their physicality and the edge that they bring to this organization right now. So the offensive group, everything is clicking right now. You're going to see you're not going to see as much from that fourth line, but the top 9 guys for Minnesota, they've been so good to start this season. And obviously a lot of credit has to go to the goaltending from Marc-Andre Fleury, as well as Gustafsson to start the season.
I'm not going to spend too much more time on a third line made up of Foligno, Gaudreau, and Yakov Trenin, but I will say this. That's a nasty third line full of big guys that like to mix it up. That's what they do, those three. And maybe that's freeing up that top 6 forward group to do their thing a little bit, because those 3 guys can crush opponents. So that's an intriguing angle. I wanted to hit you with this one as well. You just mentioned the Hart Trophy winner and odds. So McDavid plus 360, Cooch at plus 410, Mac Daddy at plus 460, and then Kirill the Bill the Thrill Kaprizov coming in at 4 steals. So I think you're right on point with your breakdown there. Not like I expected anything else from you any time of the day. However, on the Minnesota Wild, I expected even more so. Another thing that is impressing me with this team, and it's not exactly fantasy relevant, I'll get there in a sec, 5-1-1 on the road. They've had to play 7 games on the road to start this season. So if you're talking about galvanizing a unit and really bringing a team together after they were a big disappointment for the most part last season, that can turn things around. You got a veteran in the cage backing up Gustafsson. Gustafsson, I know, a couple of blips on the radar, but he's looked pretty good too. 4-1-1 with a 2.17 goals against and a 922 save percentage. I think you mentioned to me over the weekend a bad performance. He's had a couple of flubs there. For the most part, though, I think you'd be happy with 4-1-1 in those numbers to start the year. You got the security blanket.
Very happy.
Thank you very much. And you got Fleury in the cage as a security blanket. So what I wanted to come on here and say is it's a long season. Some of these performances, Middleton has been a big, good surprise. I don't know how long you can expect some of these performances to continue. However, fantasy-wise, I'm loving what I'm seeing from Brock Faber. 5 points, leading the team in ice time, I believe, chipping in with some PIMs and some peripherals. Fantasy-wise, as a man who is invested into Brock Faber myself, I like what I'm seeing from him. I'm intrigued to see if they can ride this out, Steele. Is it just a flash in the pan? Is it just one of those situations where they've had a pretty mixed bag, I think, of a schedule in terms of good teams, bad teams, and in the middle clubs? Pittsburgh, they beat. Then I know they beat Tampa. They beat Florida. Those are good teams. And then they beat up on, I think, Columbus. And anyway.
Columbus for their season opener, yeah.
So there's been a bit of a mixed bag there. I want to see if they can prolong this. I think you will agree with me, though. Right now, they are very much a playoff team. Let's see what happens. Let's see what happens with the rest of today's episode. If you're good with it, unless you have something to say, please go off, my friend.
No, that's it. I mean, this offensive group has just been outstanding, in my opinion. That's been the key factor for them having success early on in the month of October. Like you said, let's see them ride it out. They're going back home. They're going to be having a rematch against those Tampa Bay Lightning and get some top tier opponents as well. But I mean, to go on the road and to do what they did, 7-game road trip, like you said, the outlier against the Philadelphia Flyers, but to do that, like you said, it really does bring the team together and gets them in the right mindset and get some confidence early on in the season compared to what they started off last year. So the offensive group is just clicking right now, and once again, they have the best left winger in the game. Kirill Kaprizov has just been a thrill to watch.
Loving it, Steele. And I think we're going to have to take a look at this guy going forward. He's just got to shoot the biscuit a little bit more. And I think he's going to go off. I believe he only has 29 shots through 9 games. Yeah. And I think 5 goals. Like, he could have 10 if he even shot that a little bit more. That's how good that shot is. Anyway, that's how good the pod is. We're going to keep bringing that fire. Little McDavid update right after the break. Then we're going to break down some of these top rumors from around the NHL. Ducks in the mix. Oilers eyeing D-men. And the Maple Leafs looking to go even deeper up the middle. We'll talk about it right after the break. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel Sportsbook. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get that $5 wager in and win $150 in bonus bets coming your way. FanDuel Sports app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. When you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the exact same page where you place your bets. Visit FanDuel.com to join today and get started with those $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 wager hits. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NFL.
And thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. Continue to hit the subscribe button, the follow button, leave a 5-star review. We appreciate all that love and support you show us. Monday through Friday, 7 o'clock in the morning is when you can find our episodes. We're going to continue to break down some of these rumors across the NHL. We're going to get to big time bets at the end of this episode. But real quickly, we know that we discussed this topic yesterday, but the news has officially came out. Connor McDavid is expected to miss 2 to 3 weeks due to an ankle injury in that matchup that he got or played against the Columbus Blue Jackets in. So unfortunate loss for the Edmonton Oilers, who have just been really disappointing again to start off the month of October. It's been a shock again. I mean, it's almost unfathomable to process that the team that went to the Stanley Cup Finals, went to Game 7, once again start off 4-5-1, pretty bad at the beginning of the season, and now they lose their captain, their best player, Connor McDavid.
Ankle injury for McJesus, 2 to 3 weeks. That's the timetable. Number one for fantasy GMs. This is brutal. Yeah, okay, long term, I understand this is a positive, quote unquote. If you were a player or a GM out there that had even another Oiler in the mix over the first few weeks, you're probably already a little bit behind the 8 ball. Now McDavid out 2 to 3 weeks. You're going to have to get a little bit spicy with your roster. Tune in to Monday's waiver wire episode. We'll try and help you maneuver that. I got 2 takes here, Steele. Number one, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins now centering the top line of Jeff Skinner and Zach Hyman. If Zach Hyman was having trouble before with Connor McDavid there, I am just seriously concerned about this player's fantasy output. And I know everyone out there had him as a regression candidate. That makes a whole lot of sense. I don't think anyone expected him to regress this quickly and this aggressively. Time is still out there, but the eyes have got to be double peeled on Zach Hyman. So the other thing, and it goes right into the first rumor that I want to talk about with you, that the Oilers are out there looking for D-men. We'll talk about the D-men in a sec. It makes sense, right? But what's intriguing is, yeah, okay, they allow the 10th most goals against so far this season. But what's really intriguing is, I think it's actually been the goaltending letting them down for the most part. Yeah, the blue line could be better.
100% it is.
But take this in. They're allowing the 3rd least shots against per night. Only the Carolina Hurricanes and Washington Capitals, who have been 2 very good defensive teams to start the year, are allowing less shots against per game. So to me, yeah, they can go out there and shop for D-men. I think it's a good idea. Darnell Nurse has looked lost. Evan Bouchard, there's growing pains, a young player who's not really got a big track record. And Ekholm, who is supposedly on most teams a 2nd or 3rd, and right now he's having to be that number 1 guy. So it makes sense to me that they're shopping for a D-man. That's that number 1 rumor. But the fact remains, and you've said it at length, Stuart Skinner is going to have to regain some form that he had there where he showed some backbone in the playoffs. Over to you for your take on the Oilers and them shopping for D and just this situation overall.
Overall, it's a terrible situation. Like I said, they started off this month horribly. They're 4-5-1 on the season. They're a bottom 4 team in the Western Conference. And even with, Leon Draisaitl and Connor McDavid leading this team with 10 points, I believe, even they haven't been at their best. They're not at their peak right now. You typically see a multi-point games back-to-back in consecutive fashions for both these players, and they just haven't been able to put up those performances. Like you said, the Game 7 Stanley Cup hangover seems to be true for this Oilers squad right now. The goaltending has been very difficult to watch. Stuart Skinner, I mean, if you've drafted some of these players, I drafted Connor McDavid 1st overall in my keeper league this year, and I honestly kind of regret it at this point because I talked about Nathan McKinnon being
Okay.
probably the best player in the National Hockey League, but in the keeper league, I still went with Connor McDavid, and it really hurts right now. He's out for the next 2 to 3 weeks. Again, fantasy team, that's a different story in this keeper league, but nevertheless, it's a difficult situation to lose your best player. Like you said, some of these guys, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, Zach Hyman, with the way that they've been playing, they need to find a way to step up in the big moment and fill in that shoe, fill in that absence of your captain. That's number one. So that's big for, again, it's been a lack of production from Zach Hyman, but they need to step up in a big way. I don't understand you going out once again and looking to bolster up their blue line. If anything, I would start looking to maybe potentially add another third string goalie into the mix with this in the rotation with Stuart Skinner and Calvin Pickard. That's my personal take on it. But I'm not by any means a general manager in the National Hockey League. If they believe bolstering up their blue line is going to be the end all be all, by all means, go ahead and do so. But it's definitely the goaltending that has been a huge factor in their lack of success this season.
Yeah, I would say obviously a little bit harder to go out there and acquire a goaltender that's going to fit in. I just totally agree with you. Just wanted to throw out that caveat. What's interesting is this Anaheim Ducks team is out there rumored to be looking to move some of these veteran pieces. And I'm not surprised per se, but I think this is more
Edmonton Oilers should go get Gibson.
There you go. Hey, but there's the money and there's all of that, but why not?
Of course.
So they're looking to shop Vetrano, which is intriguing, Cam Fowler, and John Gibson. And I think two things here. Number one, fantasy-wise, all of those players, especially Frank Vetrano and John Gibson, I would say, are if they go to a contender, I'm taking an immediate look at what they can do to augment my fantasy team. Frank Vetrano's coming off of 2 really good fantasy seasons, block shots, hits, and a whole bunch of goals. Say what you will about his slow start, 1 goal, 3 assists, okay. I still think he's got value, especially if he gets shipped to a winner. John Gibson, very similar vein. The second point to me, Steele, is I think this is very indicative of what general manager Pat Verbeek thinks he has on his hands here. He's already comfortable to move 3 of his more dependable players, and I know Dostal's in there, Gibson on his way out. That made sense. But to me, this is proving that GM Pat Verbeek loves the young mix in Anaheim. Look, I believe they're 500 right now. Let me bring that up. 4-4-1. Pretty good start. Penalty kill, power play, still bad, but the needle is pointed in the right direction. I don't think we have to dwell on this too much. All I wanted to say is if Vetrano or Gibson get moved, I got my eyes double peeled because that could be some sneaky good fantasy value that makes a nice little waiver wire ad.
Yeah, 100%. You got to keep your eyes peeled for some of these lower tier teams getting some opportunity in a potential trade. Frank Vetrano, like you said, the lack of success he's had this season compared to last year, that's definitely a name that I would keep an eye on. I don't know exactly what his roster percentage is on Yahoo or ESPN, but Cam Fowler, guys who are going to bring out those peripherals, maybe not so much the offensive production, but those are great names, Gibson, Fowler, and Frank Vetrano. Real quickly before we get to bets after the break, also, what is going on with this rumor with Brock Nelson you told me about? Is that something that we need to keep our eyes peeled for? Is that even the possibility for the Toronto Maple Leafs to go out and acquire him? I mean, I didn't even hear that until you mentioned it to me earlier today.
It's seeming like it's a legitimate rumor, but what is a legitimate rumor? I don't know. What I will say is this. With Anthony Duclair going down, the New York Islanders, I think, are perhaps looking at this season potentially steal. And I'm not saying they're packing it in. But if you look at the New Jersey Devils, New York Rangers, Carolina Hurricanes, and Washington Capitals immediately above them, I'm not even going to get started on the Columbus Blue Jackets. Number one, how do they get out of the division? But they're not getting by the Panthers, Lightning, Leafs, Senators, even Boston Bruins. So there's just no room for this team to fit in. So perhaps Lamoriello is starting to navigate a whole bunch of different options. I don't know how the Leafs could afford him. I will say this, though. If they add a guy like Brock Nelson up the middle, they now almost immediately, just on paper, have one of the best up-the-middle center groups in the entire league. Veteran, leadership, depth, scoring. It could be dangerous for the Leafs. We're speculating, but when it comes to the Leafs, number one, and a guy in Brock Nelson who's been steady as she goes when it comes to peripheral fantasy pieces, We're going to mention it. Let's get to bets, though. I don't know what you think about this. We'll break down more rumors as we get closer to real heat trade season. A little early in the year for all these moves to pop off just yet.
Oh, yeah. I mean, a multi 30 goal scorer for the New York Islanders. He's on the last year of his contract at $6 million. Obviously, if they were to even try to get something done, the Islanders or another team would have to retain at least 50% of his salary. But I mean, there's a lot of young guys and a lot of young pieces that the Islanders could probably take in return for a guy like Brock Nelson, hint, hint, Timothy Liljegren, hint, hint, Nicholas Robertson. So I'm not
more like
by
that nice, but anyway, yeah, I feel you.
No, obviously you're gonna have to add a lot more into the mix for that. I'm just saying there's some pieces in there that the Leafs could offer the New York Islanders. Again, just a rumor, but we had to talk about it. We're gonna come back after the break and talk about our big time bets for Thursday. And then later this week or on Friday's episode, we're going to break down our fantasy hockey listener leagues and what's gone right, what's gone wrong so far in these matchups. But first, this episode is also brought to you by PrizePicks. PrizePicks is the America's #1 daily fantasy sports app. They've got over 5 million active members, and the goal is very simple with PrizePicks. All you do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings pour in all season long. It's the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports, and you can win 100 times your money on PrizePicks with as little as 4 correct picks. Alexander Ovechkin, 2+ shots. Connor Hellebuck, 30+ saves. The possibilities are endless. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONNHL and get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code LOCKEDONNHL to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive this bonus. It's guaranteed. PrizePicks, run your game. Once again, thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. Continue to hit that subscribe button, the follow button, leave a 5-star review. Let's get over to big time bets where the money is made. Flip. I've had some really good nights. I've had some really bad nights this week. I've gone 3 days in a row with consecutive same game parlays. I'm switching it up right now. I've got 3 picks. All of them are player props. But I'll throw it over to you, my friend. What are you looking at for your first pick of the night?
I'm going to start with the Chicago Blackhawks San Jose Sharks tilt, and it might not be exactly sexy on paper. Number one, the Sharks have played pretty well the last couple of games. They're scoring goals. That offensive unit is clicking. They scored 4 goals in a win against LA, 5 goals in a win against Utah 2 nights ago. And on the other side of the coin, you have a team in the Blackhawks who are involved in mostly games that have gone over the number, including their previous tilt, 5-2 over the number. I think you know where I'm headed here, Steele. And when I look at the head-to-head between these two teams, the last 3 games have all gone over the number between San Jose and Chicago. First pick, I'm keeping it clean, simple, and dirty, my friend. 6.5 over. If you want to tease it down to 5.5 and put it in a parlay, I'm okay with that as well. This one's going to go over. Both teams kind of playing poorly on the back end, but okay offensively. This isn't rocket science. Hit me with the over. Chicago, San Jose, 6.5. I'm comfortable with that number.
I like the over 6.5 in this matchup. I mean, Tyler Toffoli has been phenomenal.
How about Granlund, too?
Great pickup. Mikael Granlund, all those guys. But Toffoli, he's been rocking hard for them. You got to go with the over 6.5 in this matchup. I like that first pick to start off Thursday. If you don't mind, I'm going to rattle off all 3 of my picks real quickly. I've got 3 player props, and they're all anytime goals. I'm feeling spicy Thursday night. I'm loving these picks. Number 1, Alexander Ovechkin, anytime goal. He's coming off a multi-goal game. They're playing the Montreal Canadiens. He has 38 goals in 56 games against the Montreal Canadiens, and he's feeling hot right now. I'm absolutely loving this pick. Ovechkin, anytime goal for my first one. Second one, our boy, Austin Matthews, anytime goal against the Seattle Kraken. We have yet to see a game where Austin Matthews really takes over in the offensive zone, really takes over with his playmaking ability and his goal and his sharpshooting, like we've seen him do multiple times over the many years he's been in Toronto. Second pick, Austin Matthews, anytime goal. And this one, you might not feel it as much. You talked about him earlier this episode. I'm going with the Zach Hyman anytime goal once again. He needs to step up in a big way. All of these guys need to step up. Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, Leon Draisaitl, Zach Hyman. Eventually, he's going to have to get his first. And they're going up against a Nashville Predators team that has been pretty abysmal and pretty insignificant in the month of October as well. I'm feeling all three of these picks. My lock of the night, though, is the Ovechkin anytime goal.
I think I like that lock of the night. Of all three that you were going to choose for that, even though it's hard to throw lock on an anytime goal scorer, I like that you're going with OV. I mentioned the over in the Chicago San Jose, and I'm going to the under in the Boston Carolina tilt.
Yeah.
These are two teams that are just stingy defensively. I just mentioned that Carolina's always right there at the top of the table in terms of shots allowed. I know that the Boston Bruins, we've kind of been preying on their downfall, and they've had a bit of a rough start. They still are pretty good defensively, even though to start the year, they haven't looked like that. I think they're going to tighten it up here. I think this game goes under the number. And when I looked at the recent head-to-head, which for some reason the last couple of days I've been really struggling with tab madness over here, 7 of the last 10 head-to-head have gone under the number between Boston and Carolina. That's more than enough for me to back the under here. I will, however, be teasing it up to 6.5 because I like to cop out like that, Steele. You're going to see it at a lot of markets at 5.5 or 6. I want that cushion. I'm taking it up to 6.5, and I'm going to take my lock of the night to the Toronto Maple Leafs and Austin Matthews. The Seattle Kraken for me are just meh. That's how I describe this team. I don't want to count them out from being like in the mix for a bubble spot. I could definitely see. I'm just not buying into this roster. Jordan Eberle overachieving. I know Brandon Montour has been sensational. I don't like the goaltending. Maybe I'm hating because I really need an Austin Matthews big game.
Sounds like you're hating there, bud.
Yeah, I'm not trying to, but that's my bad. I'm going to the shot total. I think Matthews has his way with the Kraken tonight. I think you have hit the nail on the head. We've been waiting for him to have a really Austin Matthews-like game, and I think it happens tonight at home. Austin Matthews, 4+ shots on net, lock of the night. The Seattle Kraken allow 30+ shots a night on net. That's the 11th most in the NHL. I think they're going to allow a bunch tonight. I think Austin Matthews gets his. I love that you're going with the anytime goal. I almost went there as well. I think he gets 5, 6, maybe even 7 shots on net. Lock of the night, Matthews, 4+ shots. Put some money on that one.
Putting money on it, of course. We always do with the big time bets. We're feeling that for Thursday night. Those are the lock of the night. Those are our picks. And thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Pod your first listen every single day. For your second listen, make sure you go check out the Locked On NHL podcast, where the season never ends, providing national expertise every single day. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. From both Flip and I, we wish you good luck with all of your bets. We wish you good luck with all of your weekly matchups in the fantasy hockey realm. And we shall see you back here again tomorrow for another episode.
Peace.